Hi, friends, family, foes, theys, those, gods, goddesses. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Please wipe your feet on the way in. I am doing a new series called Cult Dropout. It is where I will share my musings, my thoughts, my experiences of growing up in a high control group, as well as what it's like to now be at this age deconstructing. I did do an intro earlier. I was walking Miss Pickles. She's actually got her head sticking out the window as we speak. But it was so hot out there, y'all. I was melting. Look at my hair. This is a frizz ball. It was nice and curly if you saw me this morning. So this is what you get. And we're just going to start fresh. So last where we left off. Last where we left off, episode 2, we talked about JW parents and how they put the organization first before their kids. They'll even let their child die by letting them refuse blood and bleeding out. They will also shun their children if the organization finds them unworthy because they've done some kind of egregious sin, which could be something as silly as having sex. Come on, give me a break. Get a grip. And this topic for today is going to be how I went from apolitical, from not allowed to have an opinion about politics. So I came from a very conservative background. And from that, I've now gone to what is being called by the maggots a woke liberal or a woke leftist or a radical leftist. I personally don't like much of those labels. I'm not even sure 100% what box I fit in, but I will take that honorary badge, even though they're being dismissive and reductive about the term woke, that I now am awake. That's a term that many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses use. We woke up, we're awake. We get it now. We realize what happened to us. So it's a fitting term. So I don't mind using it. I just think it's silly to use it as a diminutive, or no, not diminutive, a dismissive term, because it doesn't have any kind of connotation to it. Woke's a good word. Why is woke a bad word? Didn't you woke up today? Oh wait, I woke up today. Anyhow. So the woke left, from conservative, having no political affiliation, basically apolitical, not allowed to take a position, being neutral, to now somebody who is pretty loud, if you haven't noticed, about what I believe. There's so many things I still have to flesh out yet with what I believe to know what box I tick, if I'll ever tick any box. I'll probably always be ticking D, all of the above. But Jehovah's Witnesses, because they are apolitical, because they are not anti-government, I don't want to say anti-government because that almost gives an idea of like they're out to hurt people, getting physical with others. And that's not it whatsoever. But anti-talking about politics, anti-taking a stand with politics, but what they don't realize is being apolitical, being apathetic to politics really is a stance, especially when human rights are on the table or when they're on the chopping block, because their stance will ultimately affect their rights, their mobility, their agency. As a JW, we didn't believe in voting, protesting, doing anything of any sort to stand up for ourselves when it comes to what our civil rights are. So that is, I don't care what you think, that is a political position. It may not be one of laziness, but it is politically lazy because your decisions affect other people and your own rights. Meanwhile, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society find themselves always in and out of the court, battling for their rights so they can knock on people's doors or, have the freedom of expression, practicing their religion, like this, the things that they're suffering in Russia. There's so many little topics that we could break out on, but they, to their own detriment, let's use Russia as the example, to their own detriment, they will stay politically neutral, even though there's a possibility they could speak up for themselves by voting, by talking to their parliament or whatever lawmakers, however their government works over there. I can't pretend that I know how anybody's government works. I'm still trying to figure out how the American government works. That's one thing about being apolitical, how terrible it is, because I don't know what the F is freaking happening right now. Back to Russia. Skirt. So they will do nothing. They will stand there like a deer in the headlights watching that train come at them, and now they're being put into prison because of their beliefs. And they do have some bad beliefs, but I don't think they should be going to jail. But that's an example of how being neutral actually isn't neutral, because you are giving the government, you are giving every and anybody the right, the ability, to the freedom to walk all over you. And that also plays into the whole martyr thing, as we discussed in my other video about JW parents and allowing their children to die because those children are martyrs for the cause. It's almost like they're a trophy, they're a pawn in this game that they're playing with people's lives. And being neutral is not neutral when you continuously fantasize about end times and how the government is going to play a role in your doomsday propaganda, your eschatology. That is not neutrality. That is the fear being baked in, being soaked in. You're fetishizing end of times. You're propagandizing doomsday. You're teaching people a specific belief about the government, yet claiming that you're apolitical. Do you get where I'm saying now? How that stance is not political. Pretending that you don't have a stance is not, when meanwhile you're using the government as your pawn in your end games and your revelation that you believe is unraveling in front of everybody, the world. They use the wars, they use any kind of natural disaster to further their beliefs, the end. It's almost like they're standing on the sidelines cheering the bad things that happen in the world, because that means the end is coming. Like, to them, it's a good thing that we're going to witness the world in a decline, in a collapse. And they have certain particular governments that they believe are going to play particular roles, like Gog of Magog and King of the North, King of the South. It's not Game of Thrones. That's the show, right? Yeah, Game of Thrones. You know, not on Jon Snow. Oh, that was a terrible impression. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Was that better? I think that was worse. Maybe Jesus could be the Night King who leads the army of the undead. I mean, he does come back from the dead. He is supposed to lead an army. He's going to raise a lot of people from the grave. I mean, hey, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck. Anyway, all of these predictions, yet and still they say that they're not involved with politics. Please, you're utilizing it. You're weaponizing it in your endgame. In your endgame game. Gang. So what does a JW do if faced with injustice? The biggest political thing they've done is encouraged their members to write letters to the government. They wrote letters to Russia to ask them to be lenient. Again, I believe that to be a political move, and I would encourage that. That is what they should be doing. They should be fighting for their rights and their abilities to practice their religion, as much as I dislike it. I believe that all people should be advocating for themselves, and the whole waiting on Jehovah is just a dismissive spiritual bypassing of the reality of the truth of what is happening in this world, or in Russia's case, that people are being jailed because of their beliefs. They should be allowed to take to the streets to demonstrate if they so desire, to call their lawmakers if need to. But this to the organization is just proof. All these bad things. Oh, it's so horrible. The flooding, the earthquakes, the wars. Oh, it's all proof of how bad life is getting and that the end is near. It all plays into their proof that the prophecy is coming. That they don't care. Watchtower would sit back and happily watch the world burn and cheer it on from the sidelines, and there'd probably be Jehovah's Witnesses doing the same, as long as it meant that they could continue their position of power, which they always will have. So they're indifferent. The worse off their members are, the more docile they'll be. Watchtower will always be litigious and take advantage of any opportunity they have to fight and advocate for themselves. But they would require you as a member to sit silent, watch the world burn, and be happy about it because Jehovah and Jesus are now in control. That is the silliest shit. An invisible being now is, I'm going to destroy everything only to build it back up. And creationists talk about how God created everything, yet he'd happily and joyfully, gleefully destroy it all. It's like building a house and then burning it down. No, would not be doing that. So when I first woke up, even though being awake, being woke was not my intention, it slowly happened to me over time, being observant and finally being able to, participate in politics and realizing what was at stake. I did not intend to wake up. I just used human rights as a baseline. Like, what would I want for myself? How would I want to be treated? And I just used that to kind of move through this world. And if I took myself back to like the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, when I was learning about slavery and the Holocaust, and the young person that I was then wanted to stand up, I said to myself, I wouldn't let that happen. I wouldn't just sit idly by and let that happen. But in all reality, I kind of was. I was turning a blind eye to the injustices in this world because of things that happened consequently, because of bad events like that, because of genocides, because of slavery, because of, Trail of Tears, Spanish Inquisition, all of those terrible events. Being silent is exactly what would be expected of me as a JW. And when I began stepping out of that world as I was waking up, wake up, as I was coming out of that sleepy dream, realizing that there was a little bit of nightmare going on in the real world. There's a lot of good things about life. It's just right now, things are really changing rapidly. So as a JW, I would be expected to remain silent during all those horrible events. Even though as a kid, I said to myself, I would never do that. I would stand up. I would not be allowed to. I would have to stay silent. Currently, I would not be allowed to be doing this, making content, discussing the things I do, having the opinions I do. I mean, feminism, that's a whole nother thing that we can go down. That's important to this conversation too. Anyway, oh gosh, we can go there. We can veer there. Let's first go back to the topic, allowing bad things to happen, thinking you're a good person, when in actuality, you would be silent and you would allow atrocities to happen. I wanted to honor that girl. And not just because I want to honor that girl, it's just because that's the person I want to be. I would hope that other humans seeing me being stripped of my rights say, hey, that's not cool. Because if it happens to the least of us, it happens to all of us. Is that not from the Bible or something like that? I don't know. I want to reclaim this word of woke because I just want it to be accountability. Accountability for me as the adult that younger me wanted me to be, that hoped I would turn out to be. And she is really proud. Sometimes we gotta have those conversations with the little person inside of us and give them little hugs and tell them everything's okay. But I know that she's very proud of how far I've come from going from conservative and thinking that being a feminist was radical, was blasphemous, rebellious, to now seeing it's just about equality. It's just about getting women on equal footing. I'm not a far right extremist feminist like turfy. I just want women and theys and thems. I want us all to have equity. Equity is not a zero-sum game. It's not pie. We all can get our piece of equity. We all can be treated as equal. We can all have our freedoms and live happy, enjoyable lives instead of turning this free country of freedom into an authoritarian state with a king now at the helm. And those people who are using the word woke as derogatory they're just uncomfortable with change. Their critical thinking will either not allow it because of all their bias, or they have lost all compassion, all empathy, and only care about themselves. Or they are bootlickers who think that the government was put in place, as Paul says, and that we are supposed to listen to them and do everything that they say. And I came from that kind of world. I came from an authoritarian rule. I left that oligarchy, that autocracy. That's the word. I left that autocracy, and I didn't leave it to find it in my world of exploration and self-discovery. And I'm not telling you that you have to get political. I'm not telling you have to have a platform. I'm not telling anybody what to do. That is not what I'm here for. Just as a person, I realize that change is necessary. I've already come so far. Who would I be if I were not to stand up and discuss how similar these high control groups are with really, MAGA is a high control group. It's a cult to some extent, as well as the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're different. MAGA is a political group, but it's wrapped in Christian verbiage, in indoctrination. They're being indoctrinated by like Fox, FAUX, faux news, hearing fake news all the time. And that's their only source. And what they're being fed is propaganda. And I'm not saying that everything 100%. I'm not watching it. I don't know if it's all 100% propaganda. It probably is. But they're being fed misinformation, just as I was fed misinformation. They're being taught to have a fear of other media outlets. Jehovah's Witnesses are taught to have a fear of any media outlet. MAGAs have a fear of people in the crazy Dems in the government. Jehovah's Witnesses have a fear of any government. A lot of comparisons can be made between the two. I didn't leave one cult to go right back into another one, to be indoctrinated into the far right Christian nationalist agenda. I do not want to go back to biblical standards, especially when they're so malleable. You can cherry pick and create any kind of rule of law that you would like to. I don't want to go back to that. We're supposed to be free of religion in this country. The Establishment Clause gives us the freedom to have or not have a religion. I want everyone, I really do. I want everyone to have their ability to choose. As long as that choice is based in reality and doesn't tread onto my autonomy. That is where I draw the line. You should not be weaponizing your religion against other people. Why would you think that anyone would want to love your God if you're forcing them to love him? What relationship has ever worked out that you've been in where someone has forced you to love them? I'm waiting, and I would love to know in the comments. The fact of the matter is that is no way to bring people to love your God. How you do that is by example. Being kind. Treating people with respect, regardless of their gender or political affiliation or how they look. That is what real love and respect looks like. Seeing people for who they are and accepting them. That's how I want to live my life. That is how this country truly should be, regardless of what you think or believe. You know, if you don't want an abortion, by goddess, by golly, don't have one. You have that freedom. But don't get in the middle of me and my doctor, or my child and their doctor, and tell them what they can and cannot do. As far as I see it, being a bystander is still making a choice, and not saying anything will allow history to continue to repeat itself. And one of the reasons that history does continue to repeat itself is because we have people like the maggots who are revisionists. They want to revise history. They want to rewrite it, just like the Bible has been revised over and over and over and redacted. We don't know the original message. We're just doing the best that we have with what we got. And currently our government is happily getting involved in the schools and with textbooks, PragerU, bluebonnet education, adding the 10 Commandments to schools, putting Bibles in schools, Trump Bibles, no less. So he gets to rake in the money on that proposition as well. Saying nothing only emboldens the crooks because they think that you don't care, and they continue to push and push and push. And we draw lines in the sand, and then they cross those lines, and we don't think it's going to get any worse. And then they continue to cross those lines. How far are we going to let that Overton window get pushed? At what point do you realize that there might be no one left to stand up for you when it's your turn, when they start coming for you? We have to stick together. It is us against the billionaires, the tech bros, who are now, who are the techagakis. What would you call that? Patricks. The Patricks instead of Matrix. Anyhow, yeah. Billionaires with their greedy, grubby little hands, because they just haven't made enough. They haven't squoze enough blood out of us here. They need to continue to deprive us so they can make more money while gathering our data so it can be used against us, because it seems as though with a little tweak of an algorithm, you can just be fed a ton of misinformation and disinformation. And it's going to continue to get worse if we stay bystanders like the Jehovah's Witness organization wishes us to. So no, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't political. But as far as I'm concerned, that position is very political. Apathy is still a position. I really am thankful that y'all have given me this opportunity to share my thoughts and what I think about this world. And hey, I might change some of the things I say as I go because I'm still learning. And I'm glad that y'all are willing to take that with a grain of salt. And, you know, constructive criticism is welcome in the something is in my goddamn eye. Constructive criticism. Yes, criticize me in the constructiveness. God damn it. Constructive criticism is always welcome. Is there any particular topic that you're interested in hearing about, let me know. Let me know what your political view was when you were in your high control group. Did you have a political view? Were you allowed to vote? I'd like to know where you stood and where you stand now. Have you changed? Again, y'all, I'm not telling anybody what to do with themselves. Not everybody has the ability to stand up and speak up for themselves. Maybe due to some physical problems or economical constrictions, whatever it might be. I know that not everybody is in that position. But if you can still continue to call your legislators and let them know, about the BBB, the big beautiful bill, make sure you're getting in contact with them and telling them that you do not want them to sign it. You are a constituent and you will not vote for them if they subscribe to this big beautiful bill. If it passes, it is guaranteed no vote from you. That really will move them because they're always worried about the next election. So yeah, I'm not expecting everybody to do every single thing in every capacity because, I can't do every single thing. This is one of the things I can do. I can use my voice, share my experiences. What is your ability? We all have something, even if it's just talking to your relatives. I mean, that's really important, talking to your friends and family, those who are closest to you, because that's probably the people who will listen to you more readily than some stranger off the street. Anyway, the next topic that I want to discuss is being a Jehovah's Witness and living a double life. Like having that mask, having this duality, being one person at the Kingdom Hall or another person at your job or your social life or what have you. It's not everybody, but I certainly felt as though I was being ripped into sometimes. So I hope you stick around for that. It'll be dropped probably in the next few to several days or so. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I always have long goodbyes. Whatever, get used to it. Like, suck it. Seriously, suck it if you don't like it. I love you guys. Be good to yourselves. You matter. We're going to get through this together. Cult dropout or not, I have something to share. I have something to give. And you're going to take it. Take it. That was a little creepy. Apologies. All right, that's it for this episode of Cult Dropout. We are undoctrinated and unbothered. I'll see you next time. Bye.